Well, hello. This is DM2 in Decorah, Iowa.
And this is Mom Decorah.
See ya. Well, you know what? We're just kidding you guys. I'm sure we fooled you for a little bit there though, right? Hello. Welcome to After the Fledge 2020. I am so happy to be here and introduce to you today Lori Carnes, our special guest, and she's going to talk about Eagles in the classroom. And the special thing about this is Lori, along with a number of other teachers that we have, they have been teaching using the Decorah Eagles in the classroom for around a decade. And they're masters at it. They're really good at it. And so the special treat for you all today is that Lori is going to do some teaching and show us how she uses the Decorah Eagles in the classroom. So without further ado, I will let Lori Carnes come on, and we are keeping our social distancing here with our eagle masks.
Good afternoon, everybody. It is an honor to be here representing RRP and all the teachers out there that do such a wonderful job teaching with the Eagles in their classrooms. I have been doing this since the 2010-2011 school year. And it started out where, hey, this is a cool webcam. I think I'll let the kids watch this at school. And it changed into, oh, this is something I could teach my whole curriculum with. Or not the whole curriculum, but I use the Eagles to teach the curriculum that the school is wanting me to teach. So I want to take you through a slideshow that I created that will show you some of the activities. I'm hoping that it will give out there ideas of what to do, and if you know teachers, please share it with them. So as we're looking at the first one, it's teaching with Eagles, and we'll go on to the second slide, and this is what I call authentic learning, and it includes so much of what we do in the classroom. These are things I thought of the team building, language arts, and language arts is where I used it the most, math, geography, science, and social studies. So it's inclusive of everything that teachers go through. I have a picture there that we were working on possessive nouns, and that says Bob Anderson's dream was to let children around the world watch bald eagles. So as we go through this teaching, I feel that we're honoring Bob and what his dream was, and I think it's important for us to remember that. As we go on, I want to speak to the team building. This is from Otter Squad that she sent me, and she started the year with this, and she equated her classroom with eagles, and she told the kids how Mom and DM2 have to cooperate to be a successful eagle pair, and then she said that that was what they had to have in their classroom also. So when they came in, they also. So when they came in, there were the eagles that were above the nest, and then they came up with classroom rules that they wanted to have, things that were going to make them have a successful classroom year. And if you look at this, the bottom of the nest, and I know it's hard to see, but they brainstormed things that were going to be a successful year, like cooperating, treating others with kindness, keeping the room picked up, just all the things that make a classroom be successful. And it was huge for her in that it built her community as a classroom. I told you that I thought that language arts was the most important place that I used it. I was self-contained second grade. I've got pictures from first and second grade and some other grade levels in here. But this shows you vocabulary development where first graders, we've got an online resource where a template where you can make ABC books. And then the interesting fact about this is this was somewhat into the year, and so they were doing the letter N, but they also incorporated from a story that they were working on sound words. And so that child put those into her illustration also. And then in second grade, I had journals, and this is the glossary part of the journal. And so we would identify the part of speech, we would identify nouns, verbs, adjectives. The kids would brainstorm after discussing it what they thought the meaning of the word was. And I told them we want to use your kid words, we don't want to use my words. It's not me, it's you. So we would come up with a class definition, we would identify it as an adjective, noun, or verb, and then they would copy that from the board into their journals, and then they would sketch a picture. I usually supplied a picture for them to look at. So that's how the vocabulary development was done. And then the interesting thing was, you soon had kids using these words in their writing. So that tied into that. A fun thing that I did was I would take my class, and you can see the young man in the front, he is a second grader, and we would go to the TK room, or the TK would come to our room, and we would teach them. Well, kids wanted to teach them verbs, because verbs is something you can do. And so here is our kids teaching the words soar and mantle. And that is important, where you give the ownership of the learning into the teaching and they share it with somebody else. In this next slide, it shows essential questions, and each story in our language arts series has an essential question that you're supposed to answer as you go through that story that week. And so this week it was, how do animals' bodies help them? And instead of doing maybe the example that the book had of what animal to use, they did that one, but they also did eagles. And so they named the body parts, and they would look at pictures, and they would think about how their body parts enable them to be healthy, successful eagles. So that's relating it to, again, to your language arts curriculum. And it's also vocabulary development, because you've got all the parts of the eagle and what they know what those parts are. And then as we go on, at the end of the week, later on in the week, then the kids would take what they learned from that chart and they would write. So you've got the writing aspect that followed up the essential question, which would use the vocabulary words also. So that's how it all ties together. And another skill that language arts teach is compare and contrast, and the options for compare and contrast are just absolutely huge. I did these two. We had a story on the emperor penguin, and it was mid-February, and so my kids had a lot of knowledge about eagles, because we start in August when we started learning about eagles. So then we compared a bald eagle to an emperor penguin, and this is what's called a Venn diagram, how they're different and then in the center is how the things that are the same about them. So, and then to carry it on, we did it with the emperor penguin chick, and then the kids, after discussion and listing and that kind of thing, they were then able to create their own Venn diagram. And they also had to get the things about the eagles, they had to use their information that was in their journals that we keep all year long, and the story that was in their language arts books. So I didn't provide those examples, they had to look them up. So there's an example of a second grader actually using resources to do research. I said that I always had the kids keep journals, and the journals were divided into 3 parts. We had the glossary section, and there's an example of mantle, and again, we identified it as a verb, and the kids came up with their kid definition, and we all did the same definition, put it on the board, and they copied it from the board into their journals, and then I had a mantle picture, or probably even watched a video of it, and so then they would sketch their picture. And you find that when they put it down on paper is when it sinks into their head better. So, and then we had tandem feeding, which the kids loved to watch, and so we would watch that video. Well, then there's the problem of, well, we've got 2 words, so we have to realize that tandem is the adjective that's defining or describing the noun, the feeding. So that's how they have to come up with that. And moving on, then we have, I had the glossary section, and then we have a writing section, and I would do anything from, I start the year with asking the kids, what do you know about bald eagles? And some of the kids say, well, what if I don't know anything? I said, then write in your journal, I don't know anything about bald eagles, because it's true. And so as we go through the year, then we'll watch videos or we'll talk about things, and then they write in their journals about this. And the cute one of this is, we watched a video, because kids ask the question, well, do bald eagles swim? And the answer is yes. So then I find a video, I go from their questions, and they very probably asked the mods this question. And so then the next day, find the video. That's why I say I write the lesson plans for a sub, and then I go off of what the kids are interested in and how it fits into what we're supposed to be studying with our language arts curriculum. And so they describe, so you've got descriptive writing of watching them, or having them write about watching a bald eagle swim. The next one is laying an egg. So we would break down and we would talk about what mom goes through when contractions, and how she toggles, and how she cleared the vent. And well, why did she clear the vent? Well, because you have to clear that out so that the egg can be laid. And so we go through that, and we would have studied that ahead of time, and we would have watched animated videos, and then of course mom always laid her eggs at night, so the next day then we would watch the video of mom laying the egg, and then they would write in their journals about it. Opinion writing is it's difficult for kids, and difficult for them to distinguish between fact and what your opinion is. Well, once I started using the Eagle stuff, it was easy, because like for the one, we had watched the video of the stick tango. Well, what were the eagles thinking? What were they feeling? And you know what? We don't know. And that's the interesting thing, is we don't know, but the eagles know. So they wrote their opinion of what they thought mom and dad were doing and feeling and thinking, and then they had to support that with why they think that. The next one John will love, because it is the one on mom catching the mouse, I do believe.
Yeah.
And the video went out, and you could have heard my kids groaned. Did she eat it or did she not eat it? And I said, I don't know. So I thought okay, well, dropped the lesson plans and I went right to opinion writing, and we discussed whether we thought it was eaten or whether it wasn't. And this one is really, I think Mom ate the mouse. I think she ate the mouse because the bald eagles are carnivores. So there's some of your vocabulary, carnivores. Also, the mice this year were bugging Mom, so she might have been tired of the mice bugging her that night, and when she saw one of them, she might have thought this. And I love this because we have to write with voice, and this student said, "Oh, a mouse. Now is my chance to get rid of one." So she probably ate it, which that was priceless when I read that. So, and we would also project these. They would options. I never forced anybody, but they had options to share this with the class if they wanted to. And you don't have reluctant writers when it's engaging like this. So it's interesting. Our third part of our journal is where we kept facts. So we would just record facts about the eggs, facts about the feathers, facts about eyesight, and all those kind of things. And then, so we would have pages and pages of, and we learned to bullet. And then the kids, towards the end of the year, would get to choose topics. We would list a whole bunch of topics, and then after their topics are chosen, then we wrote a class book. And so what they had to do was take those phrases from the information section and turn it into sentences like this, and then illustrate it. And the interesting thing is, when we were deciding who would write what thing, one of the kids would say, "So here's your team building." One of the kids would say, "Well, I think so-and-so should write this because they drew a really cool picture in their journal about this." Or I had one that really understood unihemispheric sleep, slow wave unihemispheric sleep. And so, well, she ought to do this because she really understands it and she could write about it. So there's the power and the kid ownership in this. So then you talk about math, and I didn't use it as much in math as I did the language arts, but I still use it quite a bit. And one of the things we did was we learned how to weigh and measure things. And so I don't have a picture of this, but we used to measure how tall the eagle was, and of course I have the big eagle in my classroom where they can go measure their wingspan against the eagle. So we measured those things out, and then in these pictures we are weighing the egg, and we weighed the hatchling, and then we weighed it at 1 week, and after 2 weeks and 3 weeks, and then the kids would be able to hold those things and see how quickly this fastest growing bird in North America really does gain weight. So we talked about the rapid growth cycle and what days those were in. So we did weighing and measuring. Geometric solids. There are 4 geometric solids that the nest is like, our bald eagle's nest is like. And so I would project pictures and show them, like the cylinder. I have geometric solids in my classroom, so they would see the cylinder-shaped nest, and then I'd find pictures of, we'll let that vehicle go. There we go. We would find pictures I found pictures of a nest to project, and bowl-shaped, and we talked about how the disc shape is actually just a short cylinder, and the cone-shaped, so it's like an ice cream cone. So that's how, so when we were studying geometric solids, we studied the shapes that the nest got. And then timelines, getting kids to understand the passage of time is very difficult. So what I did every year was, when the cams get turned on in October, I'd start taking screenshots. And so, like, every month I would maybe choose 2 different dates, about 2 weeks apart, and take screenshots and print those and put them up there. And the kids will go up and refer to them and look at it, and we would see how the nest would progress in being built. We would see when there's not a lot of activity and the nest hasn't changed much, and then we see where it's ramped up, and then the pictures of the eaglets as they change from week to week to week. And then what I did was took cash register tape and gave each child a piece of it, and they got to choose whatever points they wanted from the timeline. But then they learned passage of time. So that is a very valuable tool. And that is also a text feature. Timelines are text features in language arts. So math and language arts were both in that. And then here we have nest measurement, and I would give the kids a string. I broke them into small groups of about 4 or 5 and give them string and a yardstick, and I'd say measure out a 6-foot nest or a 4-foot, whatever. We usually did 6 foot. And it was interesting because then I sat back and I let them figure it out. And so there's your community of having to communicate, having to disagree without having problems, or agree or see somebody else's idea. Oh, that's a really good idea. And so they would come up with it, and then afterwards I would have all the groups, well, how'd you figure it out? So they would share with the other groups, and as they shared with the other groups, they realized, well, they did it different than we did, but you all arrived at the answer, and so then they soon learned that there's more than one way to figure things out. Then I said, well, good news, kids, nests aren't circles. And then I would give them the dimensions of the Decorah nest, and like the one year it was 6 feet 8 inches by 4 feet 9 inches, and I'd say, and the circumference was, I think, 18 feet. And again, then in a large group, they had to figure out, how do you lay that nest out? And there was a lot of experimenting and trying, and oh, that one doesn't work, and different things. And then they figured out, one of the girls was just staring, and she looked up the clock. She goes, we have to find the center. And so then they went 4 feet 9. No, I said it's only 4 feet 9 all the way across. Well, the 6 feet 8 inches was easy. It's halves, 3 feet 4 inches. But the 4 feet 9 inches, the 4 was easy, 9 inches, and they thought, and then one of them said, well, 4 plus 4 is 8, and then you divide that last inch in half. So there's your problem solving that the kids have to do. And the cool thing is that everybody learns from each other. So I should go back one. The one picture at the bottom left is my class, and then Georgia Deb is her class. The 5th graders are measuring the nest out there in the other picture. And then here is another time of my class. And then this fall I went and taught in Otter Squad's class for 2 days. She and I team taught things, and so we measured out a nest with her 1st graders. Now it was interesting and a little bit harder. They needed a little more prompting, but they finally figured it out. So we laid the nest out there and decided that we all fit inside of it. So pretty fun. Another thing that we do with math is prediction, and so I would project a calendar that had the laying of the first egg for every year, and we would get we would talk about how, well, the 1st of February is not a good prediction because there's no eggs laid during that time. And so we would they would figure out when the span was, and then this is Otter Squad's classroom where they wrote their predictions on that, and then they put it on the chart. And then it was just fun to see who was right. So I did that. A lot of teachers are doing that one. Another thing that I did was in geography, we would follow Brett Mandernach's tracking posts when we would get information from that and see where the eagles were. And we have a map of Iowa. This happens to be D27. So down in the corner, or towards the bottom, is where I teach at or taught at. And so then we would do pinpoints of where D27 was. Well, the really fun thing this year was D27 happened to spend quite significant amount of time within 15 to 20 miles of where we live. And I was actually there the day D27 was, but could not locate it because there were over 500 eagles that day. And I looked and looked and looked for antennas, and it was way across the Mississippi at the Lock and Dam 18, but that brought it to life. And we also used this for math, and the kids wanted to go on a field trip. So we would have to figure, we drove 60 miles an hour because 60 is a number you can half, and figured out the miles, and they decided that we would get up there in time to wave at the eagles and go back home. So field trips weren't possible. This is Georgia Debs, and she had her kids in groups, and they worked in groups and they did research, and then their research is posted on the bulletin board there. So a little higher level, and the kids were using more of a science deal here. And then social studies, of course, in our book we always talked about our national emblem and read some of the history and got the true story of the turkey and everything, and then included that. The kids always wanted to include that in their book. Nest building is an activity that the kids really loved. Our NGSS science standards, one of them is to have engineering, and so this fits perfect with it. And I would have the base, a local person donated the bases for me, and we would talk about what a strong eagle's nest would need and that kind of stuff, and then the kids would build the nest. This happens to, first picture is Otter Squad's class this fall, and the second picture is a preschool camp that I teach every summer for a lady, one day, and I go in and teach about eagles. So that was just this summer, and they built their nest. So we have another one, and notice the corn cob in the nest. So the kids like to have the corn cobs and the grass and all that kind of stuff, and we of course put bald eagles in the nest. And then when we would have an eaglet hatch, I would put a fish in the nest, so they'd come in and look for the fish. So that was fun. Classroom visits is something that I'm doing quite a bit of. I was until we couldn't go into the classrooms anymore, and hopefully I will get to do again someday. This happens to be our mod Smile a While, and she went into Georgia Deb's classroom and she answered questions. Farm in Iowa, one of our mods, she donated eagles for all the kids, stuffed eagles for all the kids to have, and that was very special. And then Smile is very artistic, and so she actually designed eagle wings that the kids could put on, and that was a big hit. The interesting thing is, once she's been in that classroom, then you have a real deep connection when you see that mod on chat. So that's why I'd like us to have more of that, and something we can work towards. Mod Izzy came to my classroom several years ago, and several different times, different years, and one day we were dissecting owl pellets, and then the kids created posters, and so reading the posters to her. And this next one is where I went in and spent 2 days in Otter Squad's class this past October, and I took a small group, she had small groups, and the kids were writing when they weren't with us, and I'm just taking a book and doing a picture walk. Didn't read the book to them. What do you notice? So that's, and we talked about the nest shapes, and we measured out a nest, and then she's asking them questions. One thing I've noticed is that the webcam teaches kids to notice things. They're aware of things more often. Then I was also going into Miller TK in my home school where I retired from, and we passed the torch on to her. And so I was going in weekly, spending an hour. Sometimes I just couldn't pull myself away, and we'd get going, and all of a sudden 2 hours had gone by, and this is with TK kids, little 4-year-olds. But they're so interested. So it shows them, we were predicting there, and we were measuring stuff. And then education chat. Last fall when the cameras came on, I weekly would go into a personal chat with Otter Squad's class. And So quite often we would have a topic and talk about that, and we would have questions ready, and then we would one thing that I like to do is, thank you, John, the kids would ask me a question, or I would ask them a question, and they would say what they think, and then I would ask them a question to follow up. I think it's real powerful when you're trying to give questions and answers that you ask them a question to get them to think deeper. So I try to do that a lot. So, I want to make teachers aware of the fact that we have a committee, an education committee, and right now we're meeting remotely, and we've got 4 teachers writing lesson plans. They can be found on this page, raptorresource.education, and there's some really fantastic stuff on there. I would highly suggest anybody check it out to see what you can do with this. It reaches all ages, from the little kids to the high school could use a lot of this stuff also. So this is where the links are, and then this is a screenshot I took of just how some of the lesson plans are there, and you can do searches by the art or elementary or language arts, or you can refine your search and search for keywords and those kind of things. So this to me is going to be very valuable, and we're continuing to work and put lesson plans on there, so it'll be ever changing. There's an example of the lesson format that we use. That's a lesson format. There's places, links to click on. It's there for you. So we don't want teachers to have to work. We want to have it available for them. And I think this is going to be very valuable when you're talking about remote learning, because it kept Otter Squad's class going this spring. I would make videos, I would send slideshows and those kind of things, and her kids were still able to be engaged in their learning. So very important. And this is an interactive math lesson for 5th grade. And you might not teach 5th grade, or this might not be what you're covering, but it can give you ideas of, oh, well, I could do this at a different grade level. I could adapt it and do those kind of things. So there's another example of what we do. I've got some slideshows that I've prepared, and I went back and made them user-friendly for parents, because parents had a big job this spring. So possessive nouns, prepositional phrases, and I would put screenshots in, and then I blank slides so that then they can create their own also. So we've got the feathers on an eagle's head are white, and then sometimes they learn that the apostrophe is after the S and the word ends with an S, and those kind of things. So all those things are covered in there. And then in the prepositions, I underlined the preposition and then highlighted the whole prepositional phrase. And I created those for actually 1st grade classrooms, but they could be adapted to any grade level. You could use them in high school easily. I think that it's important for us to understand the impact that this is having on the teachers and the families and the children that are using these kind of things. This is from Chris McIntyre. This is Otter Squad. And she said, learning with the Decorah Eagles positively impacts my 1st grade students every day. There is a sense of wonder and engagement that naturally arises as children observe the eagles and their nest area up close through RRP's amazing cameras. The lens of eagle learning motivates children to ask questions, learn new words, and share ideas. I am grateful for RRP's commitment to providing resources for teachers, students, and families. This spring, when school transitioned to distance learning, RRP opened up classroom chat for families. Parents appreciated that their children could continue to watch the Eagle Cam at home. Lori Carnes provided excellent resources for my 1st graders and was a guest at class Google meetings. Thank you, RRP, and everyone who supports their efforts to educate and provide children with this amazing view of nature. and Chris is located in Coon Rapids, Minnesota. So the next one is actually from her principal, he was just so receptive. One of the battles that some teachers have is the administration doesn't think that this is actual learning. And I was fortunate. I had total support. I was given no restrictions, and they said go for it. Not everybody has that, so that's one of the hurdles that we want to try to help with. And Ann Sangster said, Chris McIntyre is an exemplary first grade teacher who cultivates the joy and wonder of learning with her students. The studying of eagles with her first graders has created a strong foundation for the collaborative learning community in her classroom. Remember back when she had the eagle's nest and she created the community. Students are given the opportunity to learn about eagles and to apply that learning in math, reading, and writing. The students have developed a strong appreciation for eagles and nature as they engaged and worked together to learn and answer the many questions about eagles. This has been a true example of lifelong learning, and that's what our goal should be. As students from previous years maintain that strong connection by checking in with Chris throughout the year to see her and to check on the eagles. So that's a testament to Chris and the fact that her administrator let her do what she needed to do to be successful. Another one from Georgia Deb Ripple. She is from the Atlanta, Georgia area and teaches at 5th grade at East Lake Elementary School. And she says, being able to watch the Decorah Eagles has allowed me to instill a love, understanding, and respect for nature and the environment in the children that I teach each and every day. Observing and learning about the eagles can be easily tied into all academic areas, providing meaningful learning about real-life happenings. My love for the eagles has poured into the students, and many watch them at home, eager to educate and share their knowledge with family members. And that's one of the things that we hear back over and over and over is, my kid didn't want to go to school. Now they want to go to school. My child can't wait to get to school the next day. And Deb's passion shows. And that's what you find is teachers that use this really become passionate about it. And then this is from Linda Coletti, who is in the suburbs of Chicago, Illinois. And she says, I've been watching the Decorah Eagles since 2011, and every year I've included them in my classroom. I teach kindergarten, and over the years I've brought the eagles into all areas of the curriculum. We wrote and read sentences about eagles. When we went to distance learning this spring, I had the children watch the eagles every day and then write a sentence or two about their observations along with a picture in their journals. In math, we made up addition and subtraction story sentences about the eagles. We also compared and contrasted eagle life habitats with our own way of living. If something the eagles did was different from our way we did things, we would always say, that is the eagle way. And I've heard her say that and seen that also. Having the education chat has been the best thing. The children learned so much asking questions, and it also helped with their reading and spelling skills to see their questions and answers come up in the chat. We had the privilege of being guest moderators in the main chat the last few years. There is always a sense of pride and accomplishment in the children when they answered the questions from the chatters. They never realized how much they knew and remembered. As far as the impact the Eagles have made with the children, it's hard to tell because they are so young. Hopefully it has sparked an interest in them to be more aware of nature around them and how they can take care of this wonderful earth. Maybe we'll see some future animal researchers. So that gives you just a short idea of, there's so much to it, and it's the fun way of learning. So thank you for listening, and I'll turn this back over to John.
Wasn't that awesome? So what a great way to learn here. Trout Run Creek right behind us. You can kind of hear nature around us. So hope you enjoyed that. just we are so lucky to have the teachers that have really kind of grown this education program over the years and put it together. And it's neat for Amy and I and the board to be able to just kind of help move it along a little bit and let them show their talents and skills and show that to all of you. So I guess that's the great thing here is we can watch this, we can see Lori's example here, many other teachers out there, and we want to connect you all, teachers and families. Let your teachers know that this is a great way to teach, and if you want to use it, we are there to help. So anyway, thanks for joining in. We will end this segment now, and we'll see you in a little while.